Fixing Australia's housing affordability crisis. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.Heise here and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee because today I'd like to have a talk about this article from Yahoo Finance asking the question, is this the answer to fixing Australia's housing affordability crisis? Well, because frankly we definitely have a housing affordability crisis, everyone. That goes without saying. So let's first look at just housing affordability here in Australia. Now, we can see this chart from September 1990 to 2020. Houses have gone up over 560% in Sydney, 518 in Melbourne, 408 in Brisbane, Perth even, 371. Perth 405, Adelaide 371, Canberra 508, 519 in Hobart, 336 in Darwin. Everywhere it's shot up. Units, exactly the same, guys. You know, nearly everything over 400% in that 30-year period. Now, I looked at our wages. This is the average weekly wage from 1990 to 2020. It's gone, for men in the private sector, it's gone up 322%. You can see that here. Women, it's gone up 335%. So houses are going up 400% and 500%. Wages, about 300%. So there's definitely a misalignment there. We can see here first home buyer affordability. Now this, if you're, how this graph works, this is a Lorenz curve. Anything above the curve with this income level, so say here 70% income in Brisbane, you have access to affordable access to about 60 to 70% of the property on the market. And that is saying that that's 30% or less of your household disposable income. Now, let's just keep that in mind because we're going to have a look at government to the rescue and just the impact that that has had on disposable income. Okay, so just remember this. You can see only Brisbane and Brisbane and Perth. You've got anything that's even affordable. Everything else, you're going to be spending more than that 30%, everyone. So government to the rescue, what have they been doing? Recently, they've been keeping zombie companies alive. They've implemented JobKeeper, which really to limit the impacts of the lockdown and restrictions on the economy. They're juicing the housing market, and this has been going on for as long as I can remember. Our cash rate now is at 0.1%. 3% was used to be 3% cash rate was an emergency figure. They've implemented home builder, guys, and that's juiced the house market. They've got grants of up to $88,000 if you combine everything together to get into housing. 5% government loans, negative gearing. That's a cultural issue now here in Australia. Everyone does it. And look at dwelling approvals. That's the home builder effect right there. Plus super withdrawals. I mean, this is the thing. You've got a generation that's struggling to get into housing, but they're also forced to give up a portion of every paycheck to the union or bank-controlled super funds. Housing supply is reduced due to council intervention limitations. We've had mortgage holidays limit people having to go onto the market. We can see that in listing rates going down. Plus all the uncertainties now. So this is are you going to sell now or not? Are you going to wait? Now, you've got to remember all of these interventions to by the government, particularly to address this last recession that they caused, is not going to be cheap. We're looking at about $1.3 trillion by 23 to 24 in government debt, net national debt, that's state and federal, 1.3 trillion. Now, the opportunity cost of all of this, well, pushing people towards housing, particularly negative gearing, particularly our culture, is the declining economic complexity. You can see from just 99, we've gone from 40 to 2019, we've gone over 80. These are other countries here. See these lines that are pretty straight up here at the top? They're countries which are similar GDP per capita that haven't really budged, guys. They haven't budged. We've gone down. This is because we have incentivized everyone in Australia to go into property, to just go into property. And the outcome of that is, well, it's exacerbating the divide between those that are wealthy and those that are not, because it's harder to get into property, guys. Now, I just want to bring up this chart here before we discuss that on. This is the growing wealth disparity. You know, it's showing you the changes in disposable income at different levels. Okay, from 2007 to 2008. So they're slightly going up, but it still shows you the difference in disposable income for different percentiles. Guys, look at that difference. That's going to impact your ability to service and get a loan. It's impossible now to even service a loan as an individual, everyone. So we've got to understand there's an opportunity cost. This is a government term, an economics term that you need to realize. When the government intervenes in the economy, when it drives people to housing through one means or another, when it declines our economic complexity, there's an opportunity cost. All of the lost opportunities that we've had. You can't, so often you can't see it. It represents potential benefits. So if Australia didn't have all these tax incentives like negative gearing to push people towards housing, disincentivize people from starting a business, or you can even earn more in investing in property than in a job, where else could we have been? What does this cost us as a nation, everyone? Now where we have a growing divide between those that can get into housing and then people who can't, and then people who don't even want to start a family, so our population growth is declining. So let's have a look at this article discussing their suggestions on how to fix housing affordability in Australia, because I'm quite interested in this, because I've got a few suggestions that we'll discuss at the end, or you've heard me say before many times. So house prices are back in the news and out of control. In the past 3 months, the median house price in Sydney has risen by more than 100,000 to 1.12 million, guys. Sydney's median residential property price, including houses and apartments, is now 2.6% above its previous high water mark, recorded in August 2017, before lending criteria were tightened and the pandemic struck. Even areas far from central Sydney, such as the Central Coast, have recorded double-digit percentage increases. What exactly is driving these sharp rises is a matter of debate. Australia's economic recovery from COVID-19 has been stronger than many thought. The prospects of most Australians being vaccinated and international borders reopening provides further hope, even if our vaccine rollout has been less than stellar in its planning and execution. Of course, interest rates are at historic lows. More to the point, loans that can be fixed for 3 to 5 years have become much cheaper and more widely used as well. This has given borrowers the capacity to borrow larger sums. The federal government has contributed too, with a suite of measures targeted at first home buyers. Like all such measures, these look attractive at the individual level, but simply translate into higher house prices. This is right. This is the intervention in the market, the unintended consequences, everyone. And we're all going to pay for it in taxes anyway. We've got nearly, just a touch under 1.3 trillion in national debt, everyone, predicted for 2024. We're all going to pay for that. That's work that we have to do. But you can't blame, see, on the individual level, you can't blame people. They're, fighting to get ahead. They're fighting to get in the housing market. So they're going to take every opportunity they can. But the problem is we need a bigger cultural shift away from this obsession with housing. Is it possible? There's the question, everyone. Is it possible when you're in the housing market? Don't you want your property to go up in value? You feel good. The wealth effect. You think, oh, well, there you go. I'm doing so well. So schemes like the First Home Owner Grant should be called the Seller Subsidy. Finally, there's the elephant in the room, irrational exuberance. Who knows how much fear of missing out has played into price rises against the backdrop of a worldwide public health and economic crisis. One might think buyers would be a little more circumspect about their future incomes, but apparently not so much. Are they YOLOing it, guys? Are they at the point now where you can either get in, this is the chance you have, or you may never get in again? Are people afraid they'll never see an opportunity here again, or they don't care? Because the government will bail them out. So our housing affordability problem. Sadly, there's little new about the fact that Australia, and the largest capital cities in particular, have a serious housing affordability problem. It's been that way for at least a decade. Sydney and Melbourne are routinely ranked among the top half dozen most expensive cities in the world when comparing house prices to average incomes earned in those cities. Home ownership rates have fallen more or less constantly. Young people are basically excluded from home ownership unless they have very high incomes or parents with the means and inclination to provide financial help. And here we have Australia's world-class housing affordability. There you go. Look, Sydney, after Vancouver and Hong Kong. I can understand Hong Kong. Hong Kong is a tiny island when you go there, guys. Look at Australia. Look at Canada. Anyway, Melbourne. There you go. Near Toronto. Adelaide. Brisbane. And Perth. So, you know, I can't imagine we're at all that surprised. So on top of this, household debt levels in Australia are disturbingly high, reflecting the large mortgages people who do manage to claw their way into the housing market have to take out. Sure, this is matched against the high asset values of the property that they bought, but as any student on economic history knows, that's a little comfort when an asset price bubble bursts. To put it another way, asset prices come and go, but debt is forever. So here we are again. The housing market is so frothy, it has seriously reduced financial mobility at the individual level, and it threatens financial stability at the macro level. Quick fixes that won't work. Let's start by ruling out some of these supposed quick fixes for getting property prices under control. Some say the RBA should hike interest rates to make it harder for borrowers to pay such high prices. But the RBA should mainly focus on its inflation target, one it has missed year after year, getting unemployment down and wages growth up. These two things all require lower interest rates. Well, what we should also look at is perhaps the RBA needs to adjust the way they're calculating CPI and start including the burden of land in property into it. So the fact that you have to save up such a hard and significant deposit will start to impact on their measures, because it's gonna affect the ability of people to spend money day to day. So to calm the frenzy, the Australian Prudential Regulation Authority could use so-called macroprudential tools. These are requirements on financial institutions to limit systemic risks. In the past, the financial regulators has set policies to limit credit growth and curb the proportion of interest-only mortgages that don't require principal payments. It can and should do these things, though it has a pretty spotty track record of acting in a timely and effective manner. Perhaps most importantly, both sides of politics need to revisit Australia's most unique and certainly odd system of allowing interest payments on rental properties to be offset against a person's taxable income. That is negative gearing. Well, that's it. Phasing out negative gearing. How's it going? I mean, Shorten tried to run with it at the last election, but there are a lot of people that are gonna no one wants this phased out. Anyone who's using it doesn't want to phase it out because they don't want to pay more taxes. It's a tool. They'll make all the arguments in the world. One, it'll provide additional public housing, which is, kind of tricking people into providing housing, low-cost housing at a loss. But it doesn't, because it'll inflate the cost of housing, so the people that are renting can't even get in. So, such deductions are permissible for other asset classes such as stocks, and have been for 100 years ago. But no ordinary Australian wage earner can get big loans to bet on the stock market. Even wealthy investors cannot get anything like the leverage they can in residential property and other asset classes. This is a peculiarity flowing from the amount of capital banks need to hold against property loans. It's a market failure that should be addressed. The best way to do this, and as I pointed out in a report from the McKell Institute in mid-2015, is to gradually phase out negative gearing over time, and to allow it for only new dwellings in the future. Expanding housing supply would also be very helpful. That's not a bad idea. We need to phase it out, honestly. If you cut it off cold, you're going to remove an opportunity for a whole lot of people to take advantage of it. Labor took a policy based on this report to 2 elections. It lost both, although perhaps the last loss had more to do with other things, including a quite separate and less appealing franking credits policy. The coalition almost preempted Labor by removing negative gearing in 2015-2016, but then Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull bowed to pressure from then Treasurer and negative gearing fan Scott Morrison. So, housing affordability remains a serious problem in Australia. We need to tackle it now with a multi-pronged approach. If we don't, we risk the future of younger Australians and our financial system at the same time. So there we go, everyone. And what do you think about these suggestions to address this housing affordability issue we have here in Australia, guys? Phasing out negative gearing over time. Well, what solutions would I put on the table? And I've discussed them before. I agree. We need to move away from our long-term dependency on property, everyone, because it's having a greater impact on our country than just housing being unattainable for younger people. It's reducing the economic complexity of our country. It's disincentivizing people from starting businesses. Because why would you? Why would you put up with all of that hassle, all of that pain and trouble when you can make more money in a property? Get a property manager paying 50 grand a year and they're all leaving the industry anyway. We need to advocate for local and state governments to increase supply. Don't vote for parties that limit development and construction, everyone. They're not in my backyard crowd. Looking at an inner city Brisbane councillor who annoys the hell out of me, going and trying to limit development out at Ipswich. Nothing to do with him. Further away, the constituents in his ward have houses will be worth over $1 million. Houses out at Ipswich are 400 grand. This is a problem. Become politically active, guys. Contact your local members. Ask state councillors, federal members, how are they advocating to reduce red tape? Council members, what are they doing to reduce headworks charges? Some of the charges and fees that add on to projects are just ludicrous. Contact your federal member. Contact minor parties as well, and senators. Try and get some activity. And use social media to make the conversation public, everyone. So there we have it. An interesting article on how to address the housing affordability issue here in Australia. What do you reckon? As always, thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and enjoy the content I create here, there are a few ways you can support us. You can join the channel on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us using affiliate links at Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or AussieBroadband. You can also buy a merch from HeiseSays or Teesprings. We make some lovely pocket squares. Or you can use Gold Pass or the Perth Mint. Take care, everyone. Have a great day, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye for now.